Welcome aboard, everyone. This is It's Covered, the insurance podcast, because if you think that insurance is boring, then you are simply not doing it right. We really appreciate you joining us today. For those of you who are new, we are a couple of insurance agents who came from claims and like to discuss insurance issues, any news, just general best practices type of things, but also kind of keeping it fun because we do think that this is super interesting and like discussing it with people. And so welcome aboard. You can find us at itscovered.net. You can write us at itscoveredpodcast@gmail.com. So we really do encourage you. For those of you who are back for the I guess the fourth time, this is episode 4, for the fourth time in a row. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you being back here each and every day. We appreciate you sharing these episodes with your insurance, colleagues. And thank you so much. So let's get started with this. Mel, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just great. And yourself, Paul? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So this is a game that we've played before.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, and so we just to give you a little background, we've done this sort of thing for our YouTube channel before, and we did a few episodes of it, and I have to say, audio is easier to edit than video, and so we weren't able to produce these as quickly as we really would have liked because we have a lot of fun with this particular game. So what we are going to do today is a game that we like to play. Is that covered? And basically what it is we find stuff from like movies or the news or something, more often than not movies, because crazy stuff happens in the movies, and we are such insurance nerds that we kind of like, like digging into the stuff that happens in a movie and just kind of imagine ourselves as like the insurance adjuster following up after the fact, right? That, it's like, okay, now exactly what happened? And, this game was inspired actually by the movie Fried Green Tomatoes. And there's a very famous scene in it. Mel, you remember, cause we've done this before. Oh
yeah. It's one of the, the scene that gets the big laugh and, makes you, proud to be, older.
Well, yeah. So we're actually going to cut a clip of the movie into this right now. But as if you haven't seen the movie, or if you've just forgotten because it's been 25 years since you watched the movie, like me, I've actually only seen this particular scene of the movie, since the 90s, and so what's going on is the Kathy Bates character Evelyn is in a parking lot looking for a space and kind of driving back and forth, and she finally finds a space, but this person is backing out, and so she very politely waits, and then this smaller car with a couple of young women screech forward, and the following takes place.
Excuse me, I was waiting for that space.
Yeah? Tough. Face it, lady, we're younger and faster.
Tawanda. face it, girls. I'm older and I have more insurance.
Yeah, so I actually, even though I got to be honest, I'm not a fan of the film itself, but that scene is pretty great.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's it's fun, and of course, like you said, we're such nerds that we can't watch a regular movie without relating it to the insurance industry, and maybe that's why I really gravitate to sci-fi, because I don't do that so much with spaceships.
Right. Well, and this one does actually lend itself for a discussion about insurance, because the Kathy Bates characters is specifically referring to her insurance as being very good, and inferring that her insurance was going to cover this. And this is kind of why this is the thing that kind of inspired us to create this game, because when I saw this movie in the 90s originally, I knew absolutely nothing about insurance, and it just cracked me up. It was a funny joke, and that's all it was. But looking back on the scene after getting into the industry, I started going, wait a minute. Insurance's not going to cover that, and so that's actually why this. For those of you who happen to have seen the YouTube series, this is going to be the only repeat situation. But it was such a great one to start off with on the YouTube series that I kind of wanted to continue that here, and as just a frame of reference of what it is that we're doing, through all this. So, Kathy Bates rams this little car 6 times, cackling maniacally, getting pleasure out of just battering this poor car to death. And then refers to her insurance and proceeds to leave. So what is it about this that might tip us off that this is probably not going to be as smooth of a claim as she might be expecting?
Well, as she's correct in probably having more coverage with full coverage, I think what is going to be the problem is one, her intentions in the matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so insurance does not cover intentional acts. You can't. I mean, that's not what it's for. It's not like, well, I'm super frustrated. I'm gonna get out my frustrations here and now. I might have a rate increase down the road, but Geico or Progressive or State Farm or Allstate, they're going to have my back and pay for this. And, frankly, I've just had it up to here. It's Monday. Things are not going well at work. I just need to smash the ever living hell out of a car. That's not the way that works.
Yeah, that's, I would say, that's something that we think but don't do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, this might actually not be something that she even really has any intention of claiming at all. She does at the end of the scene drive away and just still chuckling to herself. But yeah, if she does think that her insurance is going to swoop in and pay for both vehicles and maybe just give her a slight rate increase down the road, that's probably not going to happen. So, one thing she might be able to do is simply lie and say, the car slipped out of gear. And I don't know what happened. I was trying to hit the brake. I hit the pedal, and it went back and forth 6 times. Is that something you'd suggest to customers?
Well, no, I would never
really?
suggest.
That surprises me, Mel. You
well,
see.
I wouldn't suggest it to them because customers will turn on you in a minute. And
so it's not the fact that it's just insurance fraud that's got you worried. It's just that, I don't know, this Kathy Bates, she seems shifty. I've seen Misery. I know what she could do when she's not happy. You know, everything's going fine as long as I'm writing the novel that she wants. But the second I turn away,
yeah, you just got to tell them, look, hey, we've all felt it, but you can't do that.
Yeah,
you just can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Goodness. Yeah. So, yeah, obviously, lying to the adjuster, to try to get a claim pushed through that should not be covered is insurance fraud. In this case, it's actually very, very obvious what's happening. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty obvious what's going on here. The young women will be reporting back to their own insurance company that this crazy lady was laughing while doing this and, hit their car 6 times, which is going to be obvious from the damage, that there's multiple impacts there. And so, then they're going to report back what she said and what they did originally to provoke the anger. And that's going to go to special investigations. It's going to be denied, and she's very likely going to be non-renewed. And so, yeah, this is probably not exactly what she had in mind. And so, what's the recourse now? So, first of all, no, Kathy Bates does not deserve to have her car repaired in this case.
No, well, I mean, they're going to fix the other people's car. And, I think, the young girl's, agent will probably talk to them about, increasing their coverage, because now they have an example of what happens, and maybe they didn't see the lady do it. And, that's why you need to carry uninsured motorists.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's going to be a perfect case. And when you say, they're going to cover the other person's car, the girl's insurance is going to cover their car.
Yes.
Yes, and
exactly.
we're going to hope here that they've either got uninsured coverage or collision insurance or both. Because if they're scooting around on liability only, they're SOL. I mean, there's like no coverage at this point. The Kathy Bates, Evelyn's insurance company is denying this flat out. And the girls do not have that, the particular coverages that might apply in this case. And actually, and you notice I mentioned uninsured because this is one of those things that is kind of largely misunderstood, is that when uninsured will apply. And when I start talking about when coverages are going to apply, I am talking about either like most states or possibly all states, but as always, good night, people. If I have to give this disclaimer on this podcast of all places, you're taking me way too literally. But nothing I say is a guarantee of coverage, right? and every state has their different rules, but there are trends in how things are covered. And so when I talk about this stuff, this is not for you to promise. Look, you're sitting in front of the customer. It's like, customer, I guarantee you this is covered. You know why? Because Paul and Mel said so on the radio.
That's not going to bode well.
Right. And when your E&O carrier calls And it's like, and why did you say that this claim was going to be covered? Paul and Belle, they're going to go, here's your rate increase. But okay, so basically this is how things work. And so there's a little bit of confusion about sometimes when uninsured will apply. Cause I've heard a lot of agents say, like, in a case like this, the Kathy Bates character does actually have insurance. And so can uninsured coverage apply? It doesn't sound like it, because uninsured it doesn't apply to people who have insurance, because then it would be, the other person is insured insurance. But
true.
But what it's talking about is not that there is a base policy somewhere out in the ether. What it's talking about is there coverage? And this being a coverage denial actually probably will qualify for uninsured motorists. Kathy Bates is not insured for this accident. And that's the important thing. And so this is why uninsured can sometimes apply. Again, I'm using very loose terms. It very often applies when, the car is covered, but it's an excluded driver, or something like that. The coverage is set up so that it can kick in even in those cases. And so the teenage girls, they can jump back into their uninsured coverage if they have any, or their collision coverage. Now, either option is probably going to make them upset. And then this is where we as the insurance professionals really need to come alongside them and help them out, because, in Texas, uninsured motorist has a deductible. Now, I know it doesn't in all states, but in a lot of states it does. In Texas, it's a flat $250, and that doesn't vary. But obviously, their collision coverage would have the deductible of their choosing. Being young, I imagine that deductible is likely high, unless they actually did get in front of an agent that actually talk to them about this and what they can afford. But in either case, they're actually probably going to be out of pocket for an accident that they didn't cause. And so that's one of those situations that really actually does very often upset customers, because they think it's unfair. And Mel, there's a good reason why they think it's not fair. Can you guess what that reason is?
Well, they probably don't think it's fair because they have a misunderstanding of how insurance works for them and the situations they get in.
Oh, I was just thinking flat out it's not fair. But that's a better answer. It's like, look, I mean, it really isn't right that anybody should come out of pocket for something that isn't their fault. That's not something that we actually want to ever happen. The trouble is that there are uninsured drivers, there are underinsured drivers, and there are people who just flee, and there are people who act a fool on the road and do things intentionally. And these things do happen. And so whenever they're falling back on their own coverage, very often there will be a deductible. And so, it's a time for sympathy. But it's also a time of sitting down and explaining to them, it's absolutely not right what Kathy Bates did. And they can, if they so choose, go after Kathy Bates and, try to get the money out of her directly. That doesn't work very often. And it might in this case, but it doesn't work very often. And so, unfortunately, that's the situation. And so it's one of the many times that we are called to have difficult conversations with the customer. But that's kind of the situation. Now, what happens when the customer leaves is you start laughing along with Kathy Bates, because that is a hilarious scene. And it makes me happy even even from a movie that I don't particularly like. And now all the Fried Green Tomatoes fans are going to be up in arms and protesting us, and they'll probably even make the news. You know, CNN will cover it.
There are Fried Green Tomato fans?
And that's exactly why. Oh, gosh. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Oh, so yeah. So this is this is a feature that we're planning to do fairly regularly. Certainly not every week, but we do have fun doing stuff like this. And so hopefully you find it entertaining as well. And so thank you so much for joining us. Now,
Paul, let me ask you: if you ever found yourself in that situation,
I was trying to close the episode.
Okay.
Now go ahead. Now you've ruined it. I appreciate you cutting me off at the beginning of the speech rather than the middle, though.
Yeah, I tried. Well, if you ever found yourself in that situation, did I hear right that under much contemplation of the situation, you would opt to the lying part?
Yes. Not. I mean, it's not like my licenses and my livelihood and actual freedom depend on this. Oh my goodness! Please,
you're just stuck to go, or would you just go to the temporary insanity or mechanical malfunction?
It's like the Toyota brake thing. I'm sure there's probably going to be a recall with the car soon. I don't know what happened. It just jerked back and forth, and I was trying to reassure the poor girls, don't worry, I have substantial amounts of insurance. This is gonna be fine. I'm older and I have good insurance. I'm responsible. That's what I was trying to tell them. They were very much in shock, and I don't blame them. But no, I would not say any of these things.
Good. I was just checking.
And that's specifically what. Well, I mean, besides, our common humanity and our desire to serve our neighbor and not destroy things, this should be the thing that keeps you from slamming into other cars all day long, is that, you're going to get either sued over it or risk insurance fraud. And, neither one of those is going to end well for you. As an adjuster who worked alongside the Special Investigations Unit for a lot of claims, you're not as smart as you think you are.
But by all means, use this situation to upsell your customer to Collision, to say with the road rage out there, if they hit you on purpose, your car's not getting fixed.
Right. Yeah. No. And this is kind of the takeaway from all of this is, first of all, there's going to be times that we have to sit down with the customer and have a difficult conversation. Look, our job is not to be their drinking buddy. No, we can be. But let's keep that after work. Let's keep that after the bad news is delivered. Now let's go have a beer.
Sounds good.
But there are times that you're going to have the difficult conversation with the customer. There are times that you are going to have to tell the customer the way it is, even if they don't like it, because long term is that if you are just saying whatever the customer wants to make them happy, then claims is going to come around the back door and deny it anyways, or tell them what you should have already told them. And then how does that make you look? How does that make you look in the long run? It makes you look like either you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't have the influence with claims that you said you did. Our claims listeners know this better than the agent side. In claims, you've got, there's no other choice. It's either an acceptance or a denial. And so we have to deliver that news to them all the time. But even in the agency, there are times we're going to have the difficult conversation. And that's what we signed up for. That is actually part of how we serve one another. And so, hopefully today's not the day for that. Hopefully today is just the day for good news. But that day's coming. Now, before that day comes though, you have an opportunity to set up that policy in preparation for that day. That when you have young people in the office who are looking at higher deductibles just to make it affordable, to actually sit down with them and say, this is what that means. If you are in an accident, this is what is going to happen. And that is also part of our job. And so with that, I appreciate y'all listening. Do come back next week. We got a great show in line for you. In the meantime, let's jump forward on this week. Let's serve our neighbor well. Mel, thank you for joining us, and thank you to listener, and we will talk soon.
See ya.